education, law enforcement, policies, human rights, children, abuse, gender equality, race, religion, politics, government, sex, legal, justice, democracy.
Because
Every
issue is a woman's issue.
Good afternoon, everybody, and we're here for another episode of Towards Article 29. We told you these aren't going to be comfortable episodes. Today, we're talking about menopause, and we're talking to two young women who have experienced menopause or perimenopause, and we'll get to them shortly. But let's start with Sheena and Martina on where menopause comes from, really. So, girls usually experience puberty by getting their period. And the period is really your ovary releasing an egg that is not fertilized, and that is manifested or seen as blood coming through your vagina.
Yeah.
That's your period. And then menopause is later in life when your ovaries stop releasing eggs and you no longer have your period, but that comes with a whole set of other things because that's a hormonal change.
Yes.
So do you remember your period, guys? When you
Yeah,
got it
I was in grade 6. The irony is that they would teach you about the reproductive system in grade 6. They talk about the menstruation, but you never really know what it is because you've never experienced it. And I recall the first time I had my period, I looked at my underwear. I thought this was weird. And I didn't even tell my mom. That's the thing. I thought it was weird and I felt it was off. I don't know if I was scared at the time or what, but I just didn't mention it to her. I shrugged. I remember having pain in my tummy as well, but none of those things I took on. You're taught about it, but you don't really know what it is.
Or what to expect.
Yeah, there is a gap there.
Well, you know,
somehow.
funny, I don't remember being taught about it. I remember them telling us to go home and ask our parents
Wow.
what is menstruation.
School.
Telling you go home and ask your parents, and that's what we have to change that. So that's something the education system has to fix. But I remember us them telling me that, and we have to do it in a sensitive way that children aren't scared, because I also know of current grade 3, grade 4 children who are told about this in such a horrible way they go home and want to throw up. So we gotta find a balance of talking about this, educating our young people about it, but not making it horrible or scary or frightening. Do you remember yours?
Yeah. And like you always say, you know, you have to speak to kids in their language as well.
Right.
A language that they will be able to receive. I remember my first period. It was on the eve of independence. I was 13 years old. And I remember getting a sudden, very shocking pain. And I was very dramatic. I fell to the ground and I was screaming in pain. And then I felt like a gush of blood. And then my mom was like, oh, okay, well, you're a young lady now.
And that's it.
And then proceeded to give me the talk. So I didn't know what to expect prior. I didn't know what was happening. And that was my first period.
And that was scary too, right?
It was.
What was the talk? What was it? Just you're a young lady now? That's it?
You're a young lady now. Do not have sex because you will get pregnant. That was the talk for me.
I can't remember ever having a talk with my mom, I don't think she really had a talk with me. I guess that's something we could spread more enlightenment on as well. Parents should be talking to their kids about this. And the thing about it is, I think now, I don't know if it's because of the food or what, but girls are getting their period at
way earlier age.
A lot younger. And I know in different countries in Canada, because I have a friend there who has a daughter and she got her period so young, that age 9, I think. And which is kind of what's happening in Guyana too.
Yeah.
And they actually had her in counseling because they thought the responsibility and the everything that she'd have to go through at that age would
pressure.
be something she had to be counseled about. And so, no, it's not only the school system, it is parents that have to talk about period too. Have you guys heard or thoughts about menopause? Because you're so young, you're in your 20s.
No, I'm gonna be honest. I had this conversation with my mom. She was perimenopausal in her late 40s. But I never really followed up on the perimenopausal topic really, but I'm always hot. So I'm like, if I am so hot now, what would menopause be like? That's what I thought about menopause when I.
Right. So, it's funny. My mother has passed on without me having that conversation. And you now think, and she died young and she died shockingly and all that, but you now think, when you read up on it, they say you are likely to. The thing is so very varied. Different people in the same family, you can have different ages and so on. But they're saying that it could be likely that you go into menopause around the same time that your mother did. But then there are so many exceptions to that. People who did it earlier, people who did it later, sisters in the same home, from the same biological parents who are experiencing it at different ages and with so many different symptoms. Like some have, some don't have. The symptoms are not necessarily the same. Have you thought about menopause at 23?
I have, because my mom, she's going through it right now, and I remember she's been having it for quite some time now, and I remember, she would constantly bring up being fatigued or feeling stressed, and just even in cool settings, she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so hot," and experiencing hot flashes. She would complain to me about not getting to sleep properly, the restlessness, and just being fatigued overall,
and irritable. My
gosh, easily
remember.
agitated.
Well, I'm
no
always
offense,
irritable,
no, but mommy, if you're seeing this, I'm sorry, but we were just talking about very open. We were having an open conversation here. She was irritable. That woman was.
During that time.
It was a period of adjustment for us.
We're speaking about a menopause, but I think the doctor, when we speak to her, will tell you menopause is probably one day. Everything is either premenopausal or you are menopausal once you hit that period where you didn't have your period for a year. Then that's considered menopause. But I'm glad to hear that even as young people, you all are thinking about it. So let's get right into talking to our young ladies young women who have experienced perimenopause and what that means. So as we said just now, we're going to bring two young ladies, and I say that because I want you to see them. Because when you're younger, when you haven't experienced this, you think of this as something that's way into the future with old people, and it really isn't. It's us. It's all of us, daughters and cousins and sisters and so on. Today we have Ide Terrell, who's a lecturer at the University of Ghana in the subject of microbiology, and Marcel Viren Shujatan, who was a Miss Diwali in the 1990s, right? So a beauty queen and a lecturer at the University, a scientist at the University of Ghana. And I know both of them, and they're both very young. So welcome to this, and thank you very much. I know both of you got very late notice for this, and you both said yes. And this entire show, it was something in my head. Not this episode, the show, which is called Toward Article 29. Article 29 in the Constitution is about aspiring towards equality for women, amongst the genders. And I remember reading your post and thinking, we got to talk about these issues more, or else they're going to continue to be mysteries, and people are going to struggle with them. They're going to struggle alone. So I just want you to know, like a simple post, because I don't always agree with all your posts, a simple post that was you trying to raise awareness about one issue has caused us to do an entire program. This is one episode of the program on issues that affect women, which should be every issue. Like every issue affects women. And Marcel, I came on to you because someone else that I asked if they would come on, who said she wasn't ready to talk publicly on the issue, said, but I know Marcel has been talking about this issue. And I called you, and you both said yes within, in less than a day. And so we're here. So if I can ask some of those hard, uncomfortable questions.
Shoots.
And for the two of you to lead this discussion, because how old are you?
I am 51.
But when did you start feeling menopausal?
At 49. And the average, they say the average average age for a woman to start experiencing, well, not start experiencing, but to go into a menopause is 51. And I was 2 years under that average age, but I was full blown.
The average age has been found to be 51 years for women typically going into menopause, and they've found that very few factors have been able to be predictive of when you're going to go into the menopause. One of which is the age of your mother when she went into menopause, and most women can't figure that out because a lot of them don't have their mothers by that age to ask them that question. The only other thing they found is smoking and body weight. Women who are heavier go into menopause later because their fat produces a lot of estrogen. So the fat actually aromatizes other hormones to make them into estrogen. So the women who are a little bit overweight have better skin and they go into later menopause, but they also suffer from the adverse effects of having high estrogen levels well into their old age, because then they suffer more from endometrial cancer than women who have a lower body weight.
I had a unique experience because I was on contraceptives until I was 49. So that by itself was me taking estrogen. So my body I wasn't really allowing my body to naturally go into peri because I was still on contraceptives. When I was 49, for personal reasons, I decided to stop abruptly the contraceptives after being on them for like 20 years. And my body went cold turkey with the withdrawal of the estrogen. I went cold turkey into all the symptoms of menopause. I mean, I feel like I checked every symptom in the book. I was sweating profusely. The hot flashes would come all hours of the day and the night, the joint pain. This is at 49. So I don't think that I have been peri or was able to experience that gradual lead up into menopause. I think I went straight into, and then I of course when I had self-diagnosed myself.
The reason for the menopause is really we are born with a set of eggs when we are born with a set of eggs that there are about a few 100,000 eggs that we are born with. Now we lose a lot of them even before we hit puberty. A lot of them undergo what is called atresia, cell death, and so we lose a lot are lost even before we hit puberty. When we hit puberty, we start releasing 1 egg per month. 1 egg per month is released, but several more mature and die. Several more start to grow. So whenever 1 egg is released, a whole cohort of eggs grows. It starts to grow, and then some of them will die sooner, some of them will die later, and then 1 will be released as the oocyte, that we release 1 egg per month. So the thing is that we lose eggs every month. Even though we release only 1, many will die in that month. So by the time we reach menopause, we have about 25,000 eggs remaining. And those eggs, they've become incompetent as there's ovarian aging. They're old eggs now. Remember, we are born with them. We don't make new eggs. So what also happens with these eggs is they become very resistant to the hormones that cause them to grow and be released, which is FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. So they become resistant to FSH. So less and less of these are going to grow, and therefore more and more FSH is being produced, which is why you get high levels of FSH. But because more and more FSH is being produced due to the incompetent eggs, more eggs are maturing. That is why that high estrogen in the early perimenopause. But eventually there's depletion, and then eventually nothing is going to grow anymore. The levels of FSH will go up. LH will also, luteinizing hormone, which is another gonadotrope, and that level will also go up, but estrogen will start to fall.
Did you know what it was?
The hot flashes, and the thing is, we always hear of menopause, and the only thing you think of is the hot flashes, which is just like the icing on the cake for women going through menopause. So when that was the first symptom that hit me, like I would have these flushes, like intense flushes. I said, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, it's happening. And then everyone would just like laugh it off and think, no, it's in your head. You're too young for menopause. I saw a few doctors. They, not immediately, but eventually confirmed that what I was indeed experiencing was menopause.
Right. And what was it?
Well, for one, I couldn't straighten my elbow.
Mhm.
It was and I thought maybe I injured it at gym, but then it was continuous, like months went by. But the immediate, like I literally packed to go on a vacation. It was a 10-day vacation. And the clothes that I packed, I had like a 10-pound weight gain. Like
Immediately.
all in the middle. Immediately, I'm telling you. Clothes that I wore at the beginning of my vacation. Before I came home, the clothes were snug around my middle. I felt like all 10 pounds just went straight to my middle. So that was one, weight gain, the joint pains, brain fog. I would start a sentence and I would, like, sometimes I'm like, I can't finish my sentence because I don't remember what it was I was gonna say. And I was intensely trying to get your attention to tell you something, and then you're like,
Was that scary?
it was very scary because I did not equate this to menopause.
Right.
I just thought, like, what's happening to me? Why am I getting this? This brain fog was real. So, anxiety. I was anxious about everything, but it could also be because I wasn't sleeping well because of the night sweats. And it was like the lack of sleep was spiraling me into all sorts of other issues. And the irritability of not sleeping, that was a main one. I mean, I am constantly forwarding my husband's article to say, I'm not crazy, I'm not alone. Every time I read something online or someone else giving their experiences, I am like always like trying to forward it to see, it's not, your wife is not mad. It's a thing and other women are experiencing it. It's just that, like, it's just something, it's like almost taboo. People don't speak on it and people feel, I don't know, why is the stigma attached to, is it because people consider it as getting old? I don't know. What do you ladies think is the reason we don't speak enough?
Well, we'll come
on
to that
menopause?
just now. But that's interesting. What were yours, Hetty?
So I came back from sabbatical leave in 2020, sort of in the midst of COVID,
Yeah.
teaching online. And I realized that over the next year or so that I was really, really anxious. Really, really, the brain fog was there as well too. Like I'd be teaching, and then when I'm finished teaching, I'm totally drained. And so I thought maybe it was
And
the transition.
How old were you then?
Probably around 45, 46, 47. I think a couple of years ago, like about 3 years ago, I really knew that something was off because everything was happening all at once. I didn't really get the hot flashes until I would say last year. And that might have been as a consequence of the weather as well too. But definitely the brain fog, the anxiety, the sleeplessness, the night sweats. I thought at one point in time, I would go to a function and I would head straight to the window, and unapologetically, I'm like, I need air, you know? So I think after a while, people realized what was going on with me. And I think that's one of the things that helped me through it, you know, the support from friends and family.
One morning, I tried to go to the bathroom and I couldn't go. It was so painful. When I tried to let a little bit out, I couldn't go. I had to squeeze it. It took me almost 10 minutes to just empty my bladder because it was so painful. And substances were down there that I had never seen before. And I thought, what is this? So I go right to the doctor and he's, doing the exam, looking up there. And he said, yep, I think I know what this is. And I'm like, what? He said, it's a really bad case of herpes. What? A couple hours after that, my doctor called me and said that you do not have herpes.
Oh my God.
And it's almost like, I was like, what? I'm like, okay, then what is it? And this was the defining moment for me. He said, I don't know. That's what it looked like. And that sent me on my own reconnaissance, my own researching. And that's when I came up with dry vagina syndrome that women have when they're in perimenopause. And I had all the symptoms of what that felt like. And I realized, oh, I'm 54 years old. They say, I learned that perimenopause can start in your late 30s, even in early 40s. I thought, clearly, I'm 54. But at that point, nobody had really had a serious conversation.
And it
with
does
me.
happen for people in their 50s too. There's no real age, rhyme, reason.
No.
The symptoms vary.
Everybody goes through it differently.
Everybody goes through it differently. Everybody's cures and remedies can be different.
Yes.
Hot flashes, palpitations, insomnia, sleeplessness, and anxiety. They are also, you have to remember that these women are also old, they are older women, and some of them are going through life changes. For instance, they may have lost a partner, they may have lost a friend, they may have, their children have left home, the empty nesters as they are called. So these are all social factors that also contribute to this entire perimenopause and the menopause thing. And then they are feeling overwhelmed because they can't sleep at night and they're having these palpitations and they think something is wrong with their heart.
One time, my heart rate was 212 beats per minute because I was in an AFib heart palpitation situation. And nobody ever once said, this is a symptom of menopause. I really thought I was going to die and was always surprised that I woke up. The worst part for me, this is when I knew I was really in trouble, is when I couldn't concentrate reading. I'm really going to tear up because I love reading so much. I let go of the book club because I could not concentrate when I was reading. I could no longer finish a book. And that is the real reason why, because I could no longer concentrate enough to finish a book.
What was anxiety for you? Butterflies and...
For me, I just started worrying about everything. I just thought that overthinking everything and thinking that like I was second guessing everything. Mm-hmm. Like if I was going to start a project or do whatever it is, I had so many doubts, self-doubting, and
you're not usually like that.
Not usually like that. And I just couldn't figure out why I was such a worrywart suddenly. Even with my children, like if they're going on a trip or they're just going out, like everything, I would worry about the least little thing.
Mm-hmm. And simple things as well too. Mm-hmm. You left the house. Did I lock the door? Mm-hmm. Gotta go. I went back. I had to go back. Check to make sure I locked the door. Those kinds of things as well too. Dealing with the traffic. Oh gosh, it's like, just everything was building up inside of me.
And you weren't like that before.
And I was not.
Right.
I was not. I mean, I hear persons talking about other signs like the dryness, vaginal dryness. I didn't experience any of that. So I think
and
it really
heart
is
palpitations. I also didn't experience that because apparently that's people think they're getting a heart attack.
Yeah, no.
They would just start getting palpitations. Thankfully, I did not experience that either.
Yeah, but the brain fog is that.
And what are you calling brain fog? Let's talk about that.
Simple things that you were able to do, add 5 and 4, and that's supposed to equal to 9. I'm simplifying it, but even like a maths calculation that is relatively simple, the brain just isn't, for me, it wasn't processing it. Mm-hmm. I would be preparing, for example, for labs and things that I know that I can do very quickly. I have to think which goes first, which goes second. And I'm mixing up what goes last.
And you've been doing this for years, from school
and
to UG to,
all sorts of simple tasks.
Yes.
Suddenly became so difficult, or you're going to the fridge and you have something in your hand, you don't know what you're going to the fridge for with it in your hand.
Wow.
It's the simplest of things.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard to explain.
Right.
But when a woman who's perimenopausal tells another woman, it's so clear, like they know exactly what you're talking about.
Right. So, and hot flashes, what is that?
For me, I would be, like a lot of people would say, it's if you're having one, I can't tell. When I was having one, you could tell. My face is dripping wet and my chest, it's like I have a fire burning in my chest. I am hot and my face is flushed and dripping wet. It's obvious. It's physical. It's happening. I'm not imagining it. Like I am dripping wet.
Right.
That's how, and your entire chest is warm and hot.
For me, it's just wet. Just
sweating. Sweating profusely.
Yeah.
Sweating profusely.
I mean, sometimes I remember a couple of times where it would come and go within a couple of minutes, but most of the time it was just hot all the time.
Yeah, well,
Like
mine used to go and come
time.
Frequently.
Did you see a doctor? Because I know you said you did, and you'll tell us what they did. Did you see a doctor?
I did not.
You didn't?
I did not, no.
So yours just went, your symptoms just went away, or
They
you
didn't
still experiencing
I think
some?
I've learned to deal with them a lot better. I think the weather now is cooler, so that has helped a lot of things in terms of sleep, in terms of experiencing the heat and all of that. But for me, I think what was important is exercise.
Lifestyle changes are a must at this age. In fact, medical practitioners should take this opportunity to educate their patients. If a patient comes to you complaining of menopausal symptoms or perimenopausal symptoms, you must take the opportunity to emphasize exercise, stop smoking, reduce alcohol, and lose weight if possible if you're overweight. So if you make all these lifestyle changes, take calcium. Calcium is a very important supplement in the menopause because women lose bone. As they go into the menopause, women lose bone. So estrogen is very important for maintaining bone mass. So if you do weight-bearing exercises, for instance, light weights even, it's very good. And incorporate that as part of your lifestyle. Add calcium to the list of supplements you take. And that would help a woman greatly if she makes these lifestyle changes.
You went to a doctor.
I went to a doctor and I said, I cannot live like this. Is after, I would say, like, perhaps 5 to 6 months of severe discomfort. I was hurting in every way. I was very, very uncomfortable, not just not sleeping, but I was in physical pain. Like I said, I couldn't straighten my elbow. And no one would believe that my elbow was really a symptom of menopause. Right. Like, no, it couldn't be. So I saw my doctor and then I insisted, I said, I need help. They did a lot of tests and blood work and whatever. And then I was put on a very low dose of hormone replacement therapy. I use it in the patch because you can also take it orally. But I wear mine as a patch and along with a progesterone pill, nightly pill.
So that's giving you what? Estrogen and
progesterone. Yes, because apparently once you have a uterus, you can't take estrogen without progesterone. But I don't know the medical explanations. I'm just going by and my little research and what a doctor told me. So I started off at a very low dose, a 3-month trial, and she said, let's see if this works, and if not, we have to up it for you. I started minimally, and I can tell you it was like a magic pill. Immediately, my joint pains left my body, the night sweats. I didn't need to I went back in 3 months. I didn't need to up my dose.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It
really
was
glad
because I also read somewhere, and I strongly believe it. At the end of menopause, you do not get a medal or a prize for enduring all these symptoms. And it was really an endurance for me because I was in a bad way. I immediately got relief, and I would so strongly, of course, after checking with your doctor, I'm not a medical doctor, but I would, if your doctor says it's okay and you're healthy in every other way, I would, for women who have extreme symptoms like I did, I would so highly recommend that they consider HRT because it has helped me. I would say that my body I still have a few pounds to lose on the middle because I started losing it again, but I would say that my body is what I was premenopausal.
That's how you feel.
That's how I feel. Like the symptoms are gone.
But I'm really, really glad.
I am
like
so relieved.
Punishment.
It was extreme punishment. There was nothing comfortable about it. Like, I don't think that I've had a comfortable day without symptoms in a 5-month period that I endured it. Right. I had to seek help. Right. It was that bad.
So there are natural estrogens found in the plant world that people have used. And there are some claims that it works, it doesn't work. There are some herbs that people use. So there is oil of evening primrose is one, and I believe black cohosh is another. But these herbs they're not standardized, and there's no clinical evidence that says that these work. And also there is in phytoestrogens, soya is a big product that people, that should work. It has phytoestrogens. It works. It works in certain ethnicities. It works in people from the Far East, the Chinese, Japanese. They do well with soya, and they use a lot of soya as well in the tofu and all of that. But soya milk, they say, is a safe option for women who may be suffering from menopausal symptoms and yet don't really want to go there with estrogen, with being the carcinogenic agent that it's supposed to be. So we do recommend, I have recommended soya to my patients as soya milk and tofu as an option that they can try that. But I guess you would have to take it in large amounts for it to be effective. And there are no studies yet. In fact, studies have come out against these phytoestrogens to say that they are not useful. So menopause should not be seen as a disease, and the doctors should try to address patients' symptoms depending on when it's happening. And even in the perimenopausal transition, you could give them hormones. You could give them low-dose oral contraceptives, for instance. You should not be giving them hormone replacement as you would do in the menopause, but you can give them low-dose contraceptives because that gives you estrogen and progesterone together. So it's protective of the endometrium while supplementing estrogen. So that's the ideal treatment for the perimenopausal woman. And for the menopausal woman, treatments differ in whether it's systemic treatment you give them, like a tablet, or the skin patch, or you give them the vaginal inserts, which is better for older women.
What has helped you, Eddie?
I wanted to say that I don't think that my symptoms are
Were
as
as
bad
bad. You don't
as hers. And I have spoken to other friends of mine with a similar sort of thing where they had to end up going to the doctor, and they had to end up going to several doctors because initially...
Or perhaps you were just more tolerant. That's not to say you weren't.
No. I know
Because
what you're
I
saying.
think large numbers of women don't go to the doctor.
When I realized yours was not as bad as mine is when you said you no longer get the hot flashes, and it could be because it's
The
cooled
weather.
down.
It's
I
not
am
cool down.
telling you.
I heard
It's
that
not.
too. I heard
I
that.
could be in the middle of a winter and I am hot flashing. So trust me, it's just that your body is feeling better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I want to take the opportunity to let the public know, especially as a woman, even if you're in your 20s, 30s, because this is coming, you need to be prepared for it. And I think our parents and our grandparents, our mothers and grandmothers, either they didn't suffer as badly as we did, or they didn't want to talk about it. But we were not, my mom never had a conversation with me about what to expect, but she had me when she was older. So perhaps that might have been that aspect of it. But there are three things. It's perimenopause. There is, if you are feeling any kind of way where you're just not sure what's going on with your body and your mind, your thyroid is something you should check as well too. Ask your doctor about your thyroid, doing a thyroid function test, or it may be an autoimmune disorder. These disorders, it's a whole lot of them: multiple sclerosis, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. They're not well diagnosed, and sometimes it's a whole culmination of signs and symptoms. So that's one of the things that I would definitely tell women. If you know that you're feeling that something is up, and maybe you're not old enough, quote unquote, to be perimenopausal, check your thyroid and ask your doctor about autoimmune disorders.
Menopause has been defined as cessation of periods for a period of 1 year. But the complete cessation of menstruation doesn't have to happen for you to start having menopausal symptoms. That's what is now being called the perimenopausal transition. So the perimenopausal transition can take years and years, and you can start suffering from hot flashes, you can start suffering from palpitations, insomnia, and these other related effects of the menopause. And people are not being able to make a diagnosis because you're still seeing your periods. So there are a few hormone tests that have been identified that may help in identifying women who are actually heading into the menopause. One of which is the FSH, which is a follicle stimulating hormone. It's a gonadotropin that it becomes very high in the menopause. The levels go up. And estrogen falls, but interestingly, before the menopause, estrogen actually rises. For a few years, estrogen rises. We know that because we treat infertility patients, especially older infertility patients. And one of the things we don't like to see is a high estrogen value. As a baseline value on day 2 or day 3 of your cycle, if we see estrogen values more than 40 picograms, we are not happy, because that tells us that this woman is heading towards menopause. So a higher estrogen in the perimenopausal transition is common and is normal before it actually starts to fall in the menopause. So estrogen really is not predictive of the menopause, because you'll actually find higher values. But FSH is. FSH, when it starts to rise and more than 25, it's definitely you're either menopausal already or you're heading into the menopause.
But coming back to what helped me, I love this greenery. I love this sort of atmosphere. So that helped me a lot. And exercise as well too.
What kind of exercise? Aerobic or strength training?
So I've always, since I was 18, 19, that's when I started strength training. I thought it was the best thing ever. Weight training is, you know, again, for women out there, it is the best thing you could ever do for yourself. I learned from a book, actually, how to lift weights. I bought they call them the 3, where they have the 2.5 dumbbell, the 5 and the 10 pound. And I learned. So I've been doing that kind of thing for most of my life.
Right.
But I think going through this period, I really had to focus in on it. The weight gain was an issue as well too for me. But I think the exercise, strength training, cardio, as well as now in this era of my life, things like hip mobility exercises
Right, indeed.
is important. Back exercises and back stretches are important. All of that to me helps me deal with everything that I have to deal with during the day.
Right.
So I would, that is something I
So
would.
investing in stuff you like is what you said. Like I love my flowers and my trees and my pruning and so if that's what you like doing, or gardening or painting or redecorating your house or packing up. Women like different things, cooking, do whatever it is you like, but also strength training. And we should really do a program on strength training because you can do that at home. You don't have to go to an expensive gym. You don't have to. Strength training really is from someone who goes to, and do not look at me and say I don't look so, the gym. Is lifting weights and using heavier applications to your larger and smaller muscles. And you could do that at home with water bottles, with you could buy a pair of dumbbells. So that could really help. Did your partners and the people around you understand what was happening, or no, or was that hard?
My husband did not. He knew of menopause. Everyone hears about it, and it's something in the far, far future. Not your
not people looking like
middle-aged
you, not people
not
looking
your
like
young
us.
middle-aged wife. And so he thought it was something. And even then, he's like, "Okay, so you're gonna have some hot flashes, and you're gonna be hot. You
Go
and
in
the
front of
nights
the
I'm
fan."
pulling the comforter, drop the AC temperature, but then 1 minute I'm cold, then I'm throwing the comforter off, then I'm covering again. So I didn't know the extent of menopause, much less him.
Right.
So he did not, absolutely. I don't feel like he was prepared for a menopausal life. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So menopause will affect a woman's sexual health because her libido will decrease, and vaginal dryness, which is a very real thing, will happen. And it becomes painful for women to have sex. And then they may have a partner who's similar in age, but nothing's happening to him, right? He still wants, to have a normal sexual life. So women have to, they could use, if they don't wish to go on the full hormone replacement therapy, they could use the local estrogen, which is a gel. They could use a gel, which they can insert. It helps vaginal lubrication. It helps urogenital symptoms like frequency and incontinence. All of that is helped by that. They could use that. Or if they want to use none of those things, they could just use the ordinary water-based gels like KY jelly. And that would help. And of course, maintaining a positive attitude towards it all is extremely important. and your partner needs to understand also that you're aging. But it doesn't affect sex. Basically, women have orgasms quite normally in the menopause. But what will affect them is the fact that they'll have less libido, they'll be less inclined towards it, and then they'll have dryness and pain.
Yeah, I remember telling a family member, that I'm feeling anxious. And their response was, what do you have to feel anxious about? Please don't do that. When a woman is telling you that, she's feeling a certain way, don't do that whole, what do you have to, your life is perfect. Well, why are you getting stressed out about these things? I think supportive family members, supportive partners, supportive work colleagues is very, very important, because there are some days, in the middle of the day when sometimes it all falls on you and you're at work and you have to function.
Right.
You do have to function. And sometimes you might need a space to say, well, okay, I can't do this right now. Please help me, Even one of the things that I said in the Facebook post, go to your
find this
mother.
Facebook post. I missed it.
Yeah, go to your partner, mother, whoever it is, and say, how can I help you? What can I do? When they come home and and they sit down, instead of like, well, mommy this, mommy that, mommy the other, ask, what can I do to help in this moment?
Yeah.
It's
And because
important.
we're let's say you're 50, 51, 47, it means you probably have grown children too.
Yeah.
So even children watching this who are in their early 20s, late teens, you can help your mother by just trying to understand that this is not who she is. She's going through a bit of a hard time. And so you could do a little bit more, want a little bit less, and just give her space to be.
Yeah.
And particularly to employers and workmates, like you said, where is the space in your organization? And I have to check that in my ministry. Where is the space in your organization for women to go through this, even as they enjoy what they do? So women love the work they're doing, but this is what they're going through. Where is the space in our various departments for that? So we have to look at that.
Yeah.
And I think also what helps is having a little support group among your friends. I have found connections with women that I was not necessarily close with before I started experiencing, but I have been so outspoken about my symptoms that I have found so many women that said, you know what, I also am going through these things, and they might have some symptoms I don't have. I describe them. I recommend what worked for me. And you form this little, and it helps to know that you're not going through it alone, that,
Not going crazy.
that you have other women going through experiencing the same thing that you're experiencing.
Big question, because I know you have siblings, sisters particularly. Did they have these symptoms at your age, and were they the same symptoms? If it's two different questions.
Yes.
Your age, one, like the same age, around the same age, and was it the same kinds of symptoms?
So I have a sister who's older, 4 years older than me, and she has not experienced any symptoms as yet. And she's 4 years older than I am.
Well, let's not say as yet. Maybe she won't. She's a lucky one.
So she is just, so this again, and I lost, like you, I lost my mom and my older sister. So I wasn't able, when I started experiencing these symptoms, I wasn't able to gauge from my mom or have a conversation with my mom or my older sister. I lost my older sister at 49. She was 49. So I didn't have like a go-to person to ask in my family. And now my other sister, I have two sisters, the oldest passed away, and the older, she's still carrying on as per normal, and sometimes it's aggravating because I'm like, I'm 4 years younger than you are. Why is it that?
Right. So the point is, even within the same family, you can have different, this could come on at different ages. It can have different symptoms. It looks different. Your responses can be different. What I'm told is menopause is defined as not having your period for one full year.
Yes.
So you have to go through a full year.
Exactly.
Some people have gone to 9 months and then they get a period. Some people have gone to 11 months and then they get
So
a
they're
period.
technically not in menopause,
menopause.
until they have that full
Right.
12
And
months.
everything before that day when you reach that 1 year, you are perimenopausal. And everything after that, you are you're menopausal. So these are terms on the internet that I'm still trying to grapple with.
So perimenopause can go on for 10 to 15 years before you actually stop seeing your periods. But to actually say that you are menopausal, you have to not see a period for a period of at least one whole year. If you haven't seen a period for one whole year, you're in your menopause. Why this is important is because any bleeding that happens after this 1 year has to be treated seriously. It's called postmenopausal bleeding. And even if it is scanty, even if it's a small amount, you must see a doctor about it, because that may indicate that you're having some trouble with the lining of the womb, the endometrium. It may be that you're having an early cancer. It may not be cancer. It may just be because of the menopause atrophy, where the lining of the womb becomes very thin. There's no need to be frightened, but it should be taken seriously, and you must see a doctor. And if the doctor finds that the lining of your endometrium, of the womb, the endometrium is thicker than 4 to 5 millimeters when you're in the menopause, then they need to do a biopsy of that endometrium, because it should not be thick. Remember, you're deficient in estrogen. So if it's growing to more than 4 to 5 millimeters and you're having postmenopausal bleeding, then that's definitely a bad sign.
When I was reading up about perimenopause, it was only in conversation with some other persons that I realized that menopause can last a while as well too. I thought it was going to be, maybe a
You're
year
over and done with it. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So that is
what
something
the
as well
internet
too.
says is anything from 2 to 8 years. Most people have like a 4-year kind of perimenopausal thing. And you probably don't even realize is what you're going through.
Right.
So for half of that period, you just, as women do, you continue functioning, you do what you have
choice
to do.
do you have?
What,
You have
exactly
children to
what
raise,
choice
you have
So you
things
until
to
it gets
do.
really bad. So you probably realize it when it got really bad. You probably didn't even realize it was creeping up on you.
Yeah.
Now, that other question on why aren't we talking about it? Here's my take. And I'd love to hear yours. The only thing we're useful for, coming back from the ages, is to bring children into this world, to bear children, to produce and reproduce, and be useful in the bedroom, almost like chattel. Of course, we now know that's not true. We have women have rights and their equal rights and so on, hence the name of the program. But if you could, menopause is this thing that says you can no longer bear children because you can't get pregnant and so on anymore, then you're old, you're useless, and so it's something taboo. And just generally women issues. We don't talk about periods. We don't talk about anything that's affecting women the way we should be talking about it. So that's probably why this is not a conversation that is, people are feeling so confused and worried about different symptoms because we haven't been talking about it. And I think that's part of the reason, because some or the other, you think you're old. When I get there, I will embrace it and I will go through it. By the grace of God, I am not going to hide that I'm menopausal. And I don't think anyone should. This is nothing to be ashamed of. This is your body's natural pathway. And that's who we are as women. Why do you think we aren't talking about it enough?
I think there are certain topics in general that
anything to do with a vagina, yeah.
Indeed.
we don't talk enough as women, and we don't talk enough with men about as well too. Yeah. And so I think for me, I have always been, people who know me know that I will talk about certain things. I've always been outspoken about certain things. And perhaps as a course of what we're doing here, we can change the narrative. And
that's the hope.
Yeah, because I do, that understanding of what this is only, it's only a woman who can do it.
Everybody grows older, and these are some of the consequences of women aging, not getting old, not being old. Look at you. You're not at all old. You're
Oh,
not.
thank you.
You don't look old. You don't look at like what people would imagine. You know, a menopausal
And that's
woman
why I
looks like.
refuse to be
Bow
told
to
that
it,
I'm
to bow-
old. And
right.
I'm like, this is something, it's the one common thing that every woman, as long as you have a uterus, you will absolutely
Go
go
through.
through menopause.
Yeah.
There's no ifs. It doesn't see color or size small, medium, or large. Or
Right.
as long as you have a uterus, you will go through menopause. Like, I don't understand like why the taboo behind speaking about it.
And the
It's something
taboo is also
every
causing
woman-
diagnosis problems. Like doctors are not diagnosing properly, in my view.
Yes.
Because I've heard of so many people who have gone and say, "Oh, don't worry about this. This is not a.
Or
This
it's all
might
in
be in
your
your
head."
mind. You know, go do some mindfulness exercises for your
do
anxiety.
some meditation.
Right.
Which
Things
is not
like
a
that.
bad idea.
No, it's not a bad idea. It might
but-
actually work, but
Mhm.
it shouldn't be dismissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any last words?
You go first.
Thoughts?
For me, I just believe in getting that support group. Talk to your girlfriends. You might be surprised how many people in your circle experiencing also the similar symptoms as you, but they're just waiting for you to bring it up so they can also speak about it. And it really is comforting knowing that you're not alone in this.
I want to say it to thank the minister for bringing this up, because it's something that we don't talk about, that we need to talk some more about. For my own personal journey, I would definitely say the exercise part is very important. Eating healthy, choosing, I don't drink a lot of water. I've had to really, consciously do things like that. Getting sexy with things like vegetables. Corilla is my favorite friend. I haven't had the whole thought process about hormone replacement, but it is something that I think women should have a discussion about. And as Marcel said, just us coming together and saying, look, let's talk about this and let's see where we can find solutions. Let's see what works for you and if it will work for me. It might not be a Band-Aid for everyone, all of our, what we've discussed here, but you know your own body, and you have your own journey, and we will all come through it really, really well.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, we can start having this discussion
Let's
about
hope
it
this
now.
is the first of many such conversations.
And open ones. And I
Yes.
hope all the guys are listening, because you have such a big role to play in supporting your sisters or wives or mothers or girlfriends through this period. Not something you'll ever experience, so you won't know how it feels, but we're telling you how it feels. So we hope you're listening. And to the women who are going to hear this and who might have been starting to feel some of this and feeling very confused, very worried, am I dying? What the hell is happening to me? Why am I feeling like this? Here's why you're feeling like this. Go check a doctor. Talk about this openly. Research it, because both of them research stuff for themselves. Research it. Go on the internet. Read up about this. See if that's what you're kind of feeling. Don't get scared about it. And let's head towards a more equal world where we are talking about some of these issues and not making them taboo. So we were very glad to be able to bring this to you.
I wish I'd known that it was a brain thing, and everything starts with the brain. And that because it affects every cell in your body, the first time you have any of the symptoms, that's when you need to go find a doctor who will listen to you, hear you, and take action for you.
Health, development, education, law enforcement, policies, human rights, children, abuse, gender equality, race, religion, politics, government, sex, legal, justice, democracy.
Because
Every
issue is a woman's issue.